Yeah, you're just young enough and small enough.
Oh, God, man, barely. How are you, sir? Oh, yeah. How are you?
It was
We
dangerous.
had a lake meeting last night.
Yeah,
I'm on the lake way on the south.
yeah, good. Nice to see you.
Is the lake in pretty good shape?
Yeah, we dredged it about 7 years ago.
Love it.
Problem is,
Just walk out. I don't even lock my door. Just walk. We walk out the door if we're traveling. We just leave
it's in better shape than it was.
down.
No, it's smaller than a lot of the ones in the neighborhood. It was over $1 million. And I'm like,
One's more casual,
No.
one's more
Yeah.
no, not gonna do that.
Well,
All right, good morning. The 1-minute warning here. We're going to start in just a minute.
right
Yeah,
on.
All right.
good
And
to-
longer. 'Cause
Might actually start on time.
Actually, only just the year before, they kept it under wraps. A lot under wraps.
Well, but no, I wasn't quite ready for 9, and I put the pedal to the metal.
I know the feeling.
So we're gonna keep Jim for a little while longer.
We're going to keep Jim hopefully until the end of the year. Yeah. Let's see, is this one mine?
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
You to bring your own.
All right, well, I see the room has quickly quieted down. I'm quite impressed by that. That is not a guaranteed occasion, or occurrence. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good morning. I'd like to thank my board member colleagues and all of those present here today for joining us, and anyone that's participating remotely. I'm going to start by asking Tammy to call the roll.
Absolutely, thank you. We will call the roll for today's attendance. Commissioner Williams,
Here?
Commissioner Schubring,
Here.
Commissioner Tyne.
Here.
We have Mayor Norton,
Present?
and we have Mr. Campbell
Here.
and Chair Wheelock.
Here.
All are in attendance and no one is remote today.
Thank you. And then next,
He's in the
Yes, I guess we should reflect
Yes.
that Commissioner Baker is present. He has just stepped out of the room for a
Yes,
moment,
thank
but
you.
he is here.
Yes.
Way back.
There he
We've
is.
all talked to him. There he is. Now we can really begin. All right, next, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Do we have to take a?
So because we have
Everyone's
everyone
here?
present today, we do not
We don't
need
have to
roll
have
call.
you call the
Correct.
roll. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. I have to just note, I think I'm thrown off because I know RT is not here. And of course, this is our first meeting without RT as a board member, so we'll come back to that later in the meeting. Next, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the February 6th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the minutes are approved. Next, we're going to open our meeting to the public comment period. If you choose to address the board, please state your name for the record and try to keep your comments to no more than 2 minutes. Does anyone wish to address the board? And I'm going to ask Cody first if there's anyone online that is waiting to address the board. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? Feel free, Chancellor, to approach the microphone.
Good morning, Lori Carroll. I'm the Chancellor of the University of Minnesota here in Rochester.
And I'd just like to speak my congratulations at this 10-year milestone and also my gratitude. So over this last decade, the growth and contribution of DMC to the heart of our city and to Discovery Square and to the UMR is phenomenal, and we are so grateful. From my perspective, the journey has been a parallel journey. In our last 10 years, since the first graduating class, the growth has been exponential on our campus, and I think that has been true in downtown Rochester as well because of the work of DMC. Certainly, we endured the pandemic, all of us together. There was deep listening, there was pivoting, there was new collaboration and partnership, and onward we go. UMR has recently been named an Opportunity University by Carnegie. This means we serve more underrepresented students than would be expected for our region. That's 2/3 for us, and that our graduates are making at least 50% more than their counterparts. I love the moniker opportunity, and I think as DMC looks forward to the next decade, and so do we, that word really resonates. There is so much opportunity here as we work on the talent pipeline and the continued growth of our downtown and the flourishing of that downtown. One of the most exciting pieces as a next step for UMR is the potential collaboration with biolabs in Discovery Square, the programming that can emerge there as we develop potential and fuel the talent pipeline of the future. So again, thank you for your dedicated work, your colleagues, your predecessors, and all who will join this effort in the future, and congratulations.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any other public comments?
Brenda Quay. Good morning.
Good morning.
We've come back to you today because we have submitted our second DMC application for the Klimt, a workforce housing project, on May 12th. There were over a dozen irregularities with how our first application was processed last summer. The DMC approval process, at least for our application, was not transparent, so we thought it was important to speak to you directly today. Our project is the first workforce housing proposal in DMC's 10-year history. Workforce housing is 91% to 120% of average median income and is a critical part of a diverse and affordable housing stock. The Klimt has 113 units, 50% of which will be capped at 110% AMI for 20 years. All of the units will be energy efficient. Incomes at the affordable housing project Brick on Broadway have been allowed by this board to be raised to 110% of AMI for up to the next 4 years, effectively moving that project away from affordable housing. Our rents allow an MRI technician, a resident, or an RN to rent an apartment in our project so they can live in downtown Rochester and walk to work, reducing traffic and vehicles in the downtown city core. The People's Food Co-op is across the street. Soldiers Field Park is a half a block away, and the Gonda Building is a short 3-block walk north of our site. Developed by a female commercial real estate developer, me, the project will be owned by a woman and 2 African-American males. We are 9 months into a HUD 40-year middle market loan process, so we know we have a lender who loves this project, and we have site control because we did what DMC has requested of private investors over the last 10 years. We invested in Rochester. We held our neighborhood information meeting on Tuesday night, and the project was well received by all in attendance and seen as a catalyst for the redevelopment of the rest of the block and the Premier Bank block to the northeast. We have separately negotiated 90% of the TIF package with the City of Rochester, so we are only looking for $5 million from DMC. There is no downside to this project. Housing is critically in short supply. There's little to no product in the pipeline. Demand is high, and our site is officially blighted. So this project would increase the property value by $30 million. Based on your own figures, there's excess demand of 4,000 units of housing in downtown Rochester alone. At 350 units per year, it'll take 11 years for the market to get back into equilibrium. But there have been no shovels put into the ground on DMC-supported housing projects over the last 12 months. Our project design has integrated Discovery Walk and the ground-level pedestrian experience into our project, keeping Discovery Walk mainly pedestrian and running all vehicular access for our project through the alley. We have been told by the City of Rochester on 3 separate occasions that retail is not required in our project. Our project team is complete. National multifamily housing architect, civil engineer, owner, lender, general contractor. All we need now is your help to make this project a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? And on the previous comments, we know that that has just been submitted, and so we will let the staff and the EDA do their job, which is to do the initial review. And I think I speak for the board when I say that I hope that they will find the application integrates and reflects many of the comments that have been made about this site and about this opportunity, and feels significantly different enough to bring forward again. So we will look forward to that review, and we'll move on now and close the public comment period. So moving on to the chair's report, today is a action-packed day for the board. We have a very full board agenda, but it's also a time to think about what's happened in the past and to look back on much of the work that has been accomplished. And a very recent milestone actually represents that in the submittal of the private investment report to DEED. This submittal presented to the state of Minnesota provides evidence of Mayo Clinic's largest ever DMC investment, totaling more than $176 million invested in Rochester in 2024 alone, which is a 30% increase over 2023. That growth is in annual investment is a sign of the good things to come. And then today, of course, as I mentioned, we'll consider a set of funding recommendations presented by the DMC EDA and the city staff. These projects that we're about to consider would draw on resources we've previously allocated to facilitate private development, including housing, innovation infrastructure, and historic preservation, as well as assets like the Link Bus Rapid Transit. And I should also note, as I mentioned already, for the first time in DMC's history, we're actually having a meeting without R.T. Ryback present on our board. And we will come back to really acknowledge and commemorate his participation on the board later in the agenda. Following our regular board meeting, a luncheon will be held at the Hilton to mark our 10-year milestone. The lunch will feature comments from and discussion between current and former state and local leaders, including Governor Mark Dayton, Dr. John Noseworthy, Mayor Kim Norton, myself, and others. And then Governor Dayton and Dr. Noseworthy were both on hand nearly a dozen years ago to convene the first meeting of this board, and I'm pleased we will be joined by them and others to recognize Rochester's growth and progress. We're even looking forward to Governor Tim Walz being able to participate today despite the demands of the legislative process. This event will be live streamed and recorded, so if you don't have the opportunity to register or attend, you may be able to still participate remotely. And then following the lunch at about 1:30, this board will meet with Rochester City Council, the County Board, and the DMC EDA. And our topic of discussion will be the 10-year results of the DMC initiative and opportunities we have to bolster our strategy and provide direction to staff. So before we move on from that, are there any questions? All right, I look forward to spending the bulk of the day with you. Next, we're going to move to the election of officers and appointments, and I'll open the floor for nominations for chair, vice chair, and treasurer. Does anyone wish to offer a nomination?
Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce the following slate of officers for chair: Pam Wheelock, vice chair, Mayor Norton, and for treasurer, Commissioner Mark Time.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion passes. I should also point out that the chair makes appointments for secretary and assistant secretary, and I'm pleased to reappoint Member Paul Williams and City Finance Director Brian Anderson to their respective roles as secretary and assistant, or just an assistant treasurer, I'm sorry. So thank you for that, and thank you for your willingness, all of you, to continue to serve in these capacities. Next, we have the consent agenda. There are a handful of consent agenda items, including a report indicating the general balance of DMC funds that remain available for allocation by this board and the city council. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All oppose? The consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the DMCC audit for the year ending 12/31/24, and I'd like to welcome our independent auditor, Craig Poppenhagen, to present our 2024 audited financial results. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning. Good morning, board. Thank you, Chair Wheelock. Just have a brief presentation here for you this morning on the results of the audit. Let's see, do I have? Oh, click it. Sorry. Oh, this? Yeah, there we go. Oh, all right. Sorry. My technological prowess is coming through.
That's why we have Cody nearby. We all need a Cody
Exactly.
allocation.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We appreciate Cody. And team. All right. There we go. Okay. So, pretty simple agenda. Financial statements are prepared in accordance with governmental accounting standards. And then, as in previous years, DMCC financial statements are also included in the financial statements for the city of Rochester. For the simple fact that the city of Rochester is kind of the fiscal host. They handle all of the financial transactions, basically, that flow through on DMCC's financial statements. So, a couple individuals that kind of take the brunt of us, being the auditors for the DMCC, Brian Anderson and Joy Harris at the city of Rochester, and we appreciate their assistance and service in helping us be here and present to you today. So, just kind of a summary of assets and liabilities. You'll know notice the bars are of equal height, and the reason for that is just basically how DMCC operates, is kind of the bridge or the pass-through of funding from the city of Rochester ultimately to DMC EDA, and then as well as your own vendors. So DMC EDA kind of handles, the planning activities for the projects that are discussed and approved here at this board level. So that's hence why the asset side primarily is a receivable for reimbursements from the city of Rochester. The liabilities are primarily a payable to DMC EDA for the work that they have done to advance the DMC initiative. Likewise, revenues and expenditures, much the same way. The bars are of equal height for the simple fact of how funding flows through from City of Rochester to DMC EDA. Kind of the neat thing here, you can kind of see just from the pattern of the bars, there's a little bit of an ebb, of course, during the pandemic, but then you can see the trajectory that's happening since the pandemic. So I know there's more discussion on that in other segments of the meeting here today, so I won't steal anybody's thunder, but it is indicative that things are moving along. So that's good to see. Results of the audit, clean opinion on the financial statements, no findings on internal controls, as well as, since this DMCC is a governmental entity, there's some testing that we have to do, what we call Minnesota legal compliance, but some testing of compliance that's kind of at the behest of the state auditor's office. So that continues to flow nicely as well, no findings there. I would say from internal controls, that's kind of noteworthy because if you look at you know, the previous two slides, you'd kind of, as well as looking at the financial statements for DMCC, you'd get, you know, might get the impression, hey, this is pretty simple, you know, pretty simple operation here, right? And I'd say the financial statements could be interpreted as looking deceptively simple because in the reality of it is behind the scenes, a lot of moving parts going on and a lot of coordination. So transactions generally start at the DMC EDA level. They have to, you know, they're working with contractors and what have you to plan out the projects. They accumulate their own vendor invoices. That gets us packaged together in the maps or reimbursement requests that they provide to DMCC. That gets reviewed along with all the supporting documentation for each of the maps. Gets reviewed by, you know, we talked about Brian Anderson and Joy Harris, you know, at the City of Rochester. That all kind of then gets approved for reimbursement and processing and draw requests submitted to the City of Rochester and what have you. So lots of moving parts, lots of coordination between several individuals. So to look at the financials don't reflect all of the activity, you know, just the logistics of what has to occur behind the scenes to make this happen. Required communications, so we issued a separate letter to boards of directors, governance, such as yourselves, but ultimately no changes in accounting standards that affected DMCC. So if you were to compare this year's financials to last year's, you'd have an apples to apples comparison. We did have one, what we call a past adjustment, but ultimately there were some expenses submitted after kind of the March 1st cutoff for processing transactions that related to 2024 to the tune of $28,358. So we, as well as management, agreed, you know, let's not process this transaction and just let it flow through 2025 activity. We're not affecting anyone's judgment, we don't feel, who would be looking at these financial statements. And it kind of ties in with just kind of all of the logistics that occur to make these statements happen. So that revenue and expense and, you know, cash will change hands in 2025 and will be just fine. So ultimately, again, because of how of the flow through kind of nature of DMCC, ultimately there's zero net impact to your position. So otherwise, yeah, we had great experience working with the City of Rochester finance team. We appreciate their assistance during this audit process. Things to come then after today is the preparation of the IRS Form 990, and if we hold to what our past practice has been, I'll be back talking to you in probably September. So that is my presentation. Chair Wheelock, I'll pass this back to you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Poppenhagen? Is there a motion to accept the audit?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, we have the EDA Board President comments, and I'd like to invite Dr. Otley to provide his update. Give him a moment to get settled. Good morning.
Good morning. Chair Wheelock, members of the board. It's a big day for Rochester, Minnesota, and for the DMC. We're very proud of the work you've done. You've got multiple very important decisions today on great projects, which we will highlight in a moment. We've got the 10-year milestone in our 20-year journey, and we're very much looking forward to the collaborative session where we get all the stakeholders together and brainstorm about what's next. And then finally, it's important to recognize we are kicking off the planning for the second decade with our 5-year update to the DMC development plan, a very important endeavor. So with regard to the decisions in front of you today, you'll find evaluations and recommendations that you've reviewed in your board packet. I'll highlight 4 things. You've got very high quality housing projects with a very strong emphasis on workforce housing. Second, you've got historic preservation projects aimed at both maintaining and creating new opportunities in the downtown historic district. Third, you've got our iconic Link Bus Rapid Transit project, a very, very important project for the future. And then you've got an opportunity to create a shared lab asset that will rev up opportunities for biotech innovation within Discovery Square. Dr. Reisenauer is here from Mayo Clinic, who will discuss more of that. This is an impressive set of opportunities for the DMC EDA board and the city to bring forward to you for consideration today. Importantly, both of these areas fit very well with our bus rapid transit and our strategic investment priorities. If you, and this is an important note, approve these projects today, you will draw down most of the funds within the Bus Rapid Transit Contingency Fund and the Strategic Investment Fund. But let me tell you what Rochester will gain if you do approve these projects. You will add enough housing to welcome more than 500 new residents to downtown Rochester. You would create more than 16,000 square feet of specialized laboratory space to recruit dozens of biotech startups from Rochester and around the world. And these projects would generate more than $225 million in development and operating investments, substantially accelerating the non-Mayo investment in our downtown. Finally, I want to highlight a couple of other reports in your board materials. The first is that the city staff and the DMC EDA staff, cognizant that you are midway through your journey, have prepared a representation of the various funding that you have available so that you can give good, clear consideration to the projects that you have today in front of you and those in the future. And second, you will be pleased to note that the DMC EDA had the good fortune of receiving another phase of the DEED Main Street Revitalization Grant Program, which has been very, very good for our downtown. So we are so very appreciative of the support of this board and all of our partners at the state level, DEED, Mayo Clinic, McKnight Foundation, Medical Alley, the City Council, and many others for the exceptional work that you have done. We have accomplished so much, and there is so much more to do. So thank you, Chair Wheelock and the board. We look forward to a great day with you.
Thank you, Dr. Otley. Any comments or questions from members of the board? I would just say thank you and to the board and all of the staff for the work they're doing. I actually am so impressed by the agenda that we have here today on our business agenda, in part because it represents the range of investment opportunities and choices that we have to make. We have public infrastructure, we have housing, we have preservation of historic structures, we have transportation, we have significant investment in the biolabs for economic development growth. And we also have information about where we are about the resources that are available for us in the remaining 10 years of the DMC. And the choices are going to get harder. And the funding sources that we have available are not equally flexible across all of the things that we might want to invest in or equally efficient. So I think we're at the point as we go through this 5-year update and the work that we have before us before we come back in the fall to make some additional budgetary and strategic decisions to really reflect on what has been accomplished and how does that maybe change our thinking about DMC's role in any specific area as we move forward. And I know that those conversations are happening with Mayo, with the city, and with others, but it's fantastic work. It's a very meaty and substantial agenda today, and it coincides very nicely with our 10-year milestone, and so thank you for all your work on that.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda actually is our regular presentation of metrics, but because we're actually going to focus on the 10-year results at our joint session later today, we're going to not get into a full presentation here, but I've asked Patrick if he can just really tee this up for the joint session and give us a little bit of perspective about what we should be thinking about when we hear the presentation about the 10-year results or things that we might want to consider in that discussion later today. So Patrick,
Thank
any
you.
comments?
Following Dr. Otley's comments and your reflections, I think it can only go downhill from there. But we will be coming back this afternoon in the joint session to look at in its fullness, the impact of the DMC initiative against the stated goals and objectives that we had. And as we oftentimes realize in the day-to-day grind of working through projects and decision-making and construction and all of the challenges, that sometimes you look back and really appreciate in its fullness the targets we had set and how we're advancing and reaching those targets. But most importantly, I think the discussion needs to surround what do these data tell us about opportunities going forward, and that's really how we hope to engage both this board and the City Council and County Board and DMC EDA as we are starting our forward thinking about the next generation. So thank you.
Okay, great. Are we ready to move on then? So now we are going to start our discussion on the private development applications for DMC funding, and these will include consideration of requests for critical infrastructure, including a shared lab for housing and historic district enhancement. And before voting on the shared lab and housing projects, I'd like to propose that we wait to vote on any single project until we have heard and considered in context each of the staff recommendations. So we'll do all of the presentations and then we'll come back and act on them after that. And also before Patrick and the team begin, Tammy, I'd ask you to make a few comments, and I know you have something that you want to note for our record.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Wheelock. Really more of a technical comment, and that is a disclosure that the firm that I am part of, Winthrop & Weinstein, has 190 lawyers, and from time to time over the years, some of my colleagues have done legal work for a couple of the applicants that are before us today. We want to make sure the record reflects that in these instances, we've been very clear that our representation is of DMC and not of any of the applicants who are appearing before you. So this applies to Aon, Sherman, and Onward, and that should be noted in the record.
Thank you very much. I think it is, in this state, it's inevitable that a large firm will have multiple clients. That's the only way you can survive, and I'm sure many of these relationships, if not all of them, predate your relationship with DMC, and I appreciate you clarifying that this is on non-related work that you have been providing that support. So duly noted for the record. And now we will turn it back to Patrick. So Patrick, I think we're going to obviously talk about the biolabs initiative first.
Thank you. So as we turn to the first of 4 projects that we are advancing against the Strategic Development Fund established by this board and supported by City Council, I want to note that, as has been said previously, the requests in front of you do not draw down any new obligations by DMCC or the city, but rather set aside obligations intended to support things like medtech development, housing infrastructure, small business support, and other priorities as determined by the board. And so you're looking at a set of recommendations that fall within previously approved DMC support with targets that you had established. The first of the 4 that we'd like to introduce, and we're thrilled to do so, and I'd like to invite my colleague Mike Flynn, who you've seen and heard from in the past. And yes, please. And 2 of our partners, Susan Chase from Biolabs and Dr. Riesenauer from Mayo Clinic. Further introductions pending, but What I wanted to do today is to start by saying we are absolutely thrilled to be before you. We've had many conversations with this board over the last several years around the notion of establishing critical infrastructure that would support our innovation capacity in Rochester. And it's been a very long and ultimately, we believe, successful journey to land at where we are today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike to lead this discussion.
Excellent, thank you, and good morning. I share Patrick's enthusiasm for the moment we find ourselves at today. Would also like to greatly thank Dr. Riesenauer and Ms. Chase, who have joined us today. Dr. Riesenauer is the chair of thoracic surgery at Mayo Clinic. She also leads the Mayo Clinic Rochester Health Tech Innovation Ecosystem effort. So it goes without saying she's a very busy person, and appreciate her making time today. And Susan, who's joining us from Boston, Senior Vice President of Business Development for Biolabs, has been involved in the development of 14 facilities similar to the one we're going to be talking about today all over the world. So we want to introduce the project to you today, talk about the action we're requesting, give a little bit of background, and then leave time at the end for discussion. There's a lot of information I want to get through, and I have a tendency to babble, so I will do my best to get through this as quickly as possible. I wanted to start with sort of just a general level setting statement around what we're really talking about here. And this is health tech infrastructure, but it's health tech infrastructure designed to do some very specific things. And those things are in alignment with a lot of the reasons DMC was created. So we are future-proofing this community to allow us to capture more innovation coming out of Mayo Clinic. We're creating local jobs, which is very much in alignment with the DMC initiative. But there's another value or another benefit that I think sometimes gets overlooked, and that is the types of economic activity we're talking about generally involve creating cures for some of the biggest challenges that people face in their lifetime. And I think our ability to engage in this kind of work that has great economic benefits, but also has this outstanding outcome when we're successful, is a thing that we don't talk often enough about. So I wanted to just highlight that here today. The action we're requesting is for support for a biolabs operation in 2 Discovery Square, not to exceed $8 million. This infrastructure investment will further the DMC goal of creating 30,000 new jobs in Rochester by providing unique business-critical infrastructure required by high-tech, high-growth health tech companies. The operator that we have selected to manage and run this infrastructure for us is a company called Biolabs. And I think the model is fairly tried and true after 10 years, that the success of these types of investments are very much based on marrying world-class infrastructure with world-class operation, and that is what we have done here today. What we're really asking you to fund are outcomes, though. And if you will indulge me for a moment, I would like to paint a picture for you of what is, we think, expected to happen 3 to 5 years from now if we're successful in this application today. So imagine, if you will, a day like today, 5 years from now, and you're on the 3rd floor of 2 Discovery Square. There are 30 employees in the lab already. We refer to these people as the early risers, and they are in the lab getting their experiments going, opening up their labs, and starting their day. Another 30 employees will likely trickle in throughout the course of the day, doing similar things, opening up their labs and getting started. A number of these employees at some point during the day will walk down Discovery Walk to their full-time job at Mayo Clinic, and they are appreciative of the fact that they can have their entrepreneurial effort located 495 steps away from their day job. The employees in the lab this morning represent 20 different health tech companies that are doing all sorts of wonderful things around drug discovery and biotherapeutics and medical device, diagnostics, developing treatments and cures that will improve the lives of millions. There's a lot of excitement in the lab today because one of the tenants just closed their Series A round, raised $15 million. It's going to allow them to continue to expand and scale their operation. There's a little bit of sadness, however, because that scale likely means that they'll move out of biolabs, most likely to the Rochester Technology Campus, where they'll add employees and additional investment. Everybody's optimistic, though, because the two other companies that moved out of the labs in the last year, they continue to see them monthly at various ecosystem events that Biolabs hosts in 2 Discovery Square. Throughout the course of the day, students from UMR will walk over to work on various projects they're collaborating on with tenants of Biolabs. We expect to have a few angel investors from the Twin Cities come down and talk to potential companies. And Kyle is planning on hosting groups from Madison and the Netherlands who are looking at space in biolabs. So I think the fundamental question is, what would we collectively pay for that? And I think what we're proposing is that the investment in front of you today is more than appropriate for us to accomplish that outcome. We are confident that this is an outcome that's possible because we have selected a partner that's done this in 14 other markets around the world and has a track record of very significant success of getting startups in, of equipping them with the infrastructure, the equipment, and the ecosystem that they need to scale, and at helping those companies graduate and exit their space to much bigger and better things. These numbers on this slide represent Biolabs' global footprint over the lifetime of the organization. Susan, who's joining us today, can, when she makes some remarks, can comment more on what this represents. But again, this is not their first time doing this. A very successful track record around the world in achieving these kind of outcomes. As we've worked with them, we've asked to see real life case studies of tell us about companies that have come in and what's happened to them. And the list is dotted with companies that come in with 2 people and 2 years later they exit with 20, or they come in with 4 people and 3 years later they exit with 100, and they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's happening in all of their facilities around the world, and I think it is absolutely appropriate to expect we would have the same outcome here. I wanted to share a little bit about their global footprint, and I think there's a couple things that stand out on this slide to me. One is the markets they're in and that network that we'll become part of. But the other is there's a big hole in the middle part of this country, and I think there is an opportunity that has an end date at some point where that won't be the case anymore. And I think we are so fortunate here to have the ability to make public investment in this infrastructure to allow us to plant that flag in Rochester and become the center of gravity for the center part of this country. I'm going to talk in a minute about the journey that's gotten us to today, and Patrick referenced it's been a long one. You should know that in my time here, which is only 3 years, but Chris Shad, who I work with, has been here much longer, we've talked to 8 different shared lab operators during that time. We have visited their facilities, we've vetted their track records, we've understood their business model. And to date, Biolabs is the only one that we felt met all of the criteria that we were interested in to make this type of public investment in Rochester. They build the best labs, and there's a lot of nuance that goes with that in terms about how they're laid out and how they function and how efficient they are and how do you achieve density, how do you achieve collaboration. They do that better than anybody. They run a world-class operation. Everything you need and nothing you don't. It allows them to be efficient and cost-effective to these companies that generally don't have a lot of capital. Again, we become part of a global ecosystem, so there's expertise all around the world that now becomes easier for our innovators and entrepreneurs to tap into. And fourth, they are partnered with Mission BioCapital, a VC fund that helps solve a big challenge we have in this market, which is access to capital for these high-growth opportunities. So it's not an exaggeration to say they solve almost all of the challenges that we've identified as we've been working through this process. The most common question we've gotten as we've started to socialize this opportunity is why public money? Why are we being asked to do that here? Why is that a feature of this type of investment? And the reality is these types of things do not get built without some sort of public support. And the reason for that is fairly straightforward. Your customer base in these facilities is generally very capital poor. They've got a lot of ideas, but not a lot of resource. And the facilities they need to turn those ideas into commercialized businesses is very expensive. You're talking about real estate that's $300 or $400 a foot. You're talking about millions of dollars of equipment. You're talking about people to run these facilities that are very knowledgeable and very in demand. And the business model without public support just does not work. And I would argue if it did work, we would have this here already. Innovation has not been the challenge in Rochester. We have more innovation in this community than we all are even aware of. And if we were able to more successfully translate that innovation in Rochester into startups and commercialization, we wouldn't be here today. And so this asset, I think, is definitely representative of a thing we need if we're going to achieve our ultimate destiny. On the slide, you can see other examples, biolabs operations that have been opened in the past few years and the types of public support. And again, if you sort of read the fine print here, you'll see that our investment, the investment we're being asked to make, is on par with other communities that have been successful in landing one of these facilities. So if the first question we get is why public money, the second question is why now? Why does this make sense now? And I think there are a variety of reasons. The first one I would bring up is that this is delivering on the original vision of Discovery Square. If you go back to the original Discovery Square master plan that was written almost 10 years ago, commissioned by Mayo Clinic, it outlines the need for incubator and accelerator space to transfer technology to support startups and early stage biomed tech companies. And it needs to have the lowest possible cost of occupancy, it needs to be flexible, and it needs to be able to retain tenants. The other key finding is, due to the high costs of construction and primarily high-risk non-credit tenants, it is challenging for the private market alone to provide an adequate supply of space. So the original DMC master plan predicted the position we were going to be in today 10 years ago, which is this type of asset is critical to our success, and it will not be possible without public support. Along the way, you'll notice there's some boxes there that are outlined in a dotted heavier line. Those are all different feasibility studies we've done to try to analyze if this asset is important here, and every one of them pointed to the same outcome, that we have more than enough innovation here to have this space be successful, and that this type of space will not get created without public support. Our awareness and perception study in 2022, we talked to 400 different health tech companies and advisors to health tech companies, all said the same thing. Turnkey lab space is critical to our success. Facility Logic did a feasibility study after that one, and again, pointed to the same outcome. This type of space will be successful here, but it's going to require public support. You'll also see on here, we started our first conversations around a shared lab operator in 2020, and we've been through, at least to my count, 8 different operators before landing on biolabs as the preferred choice. Second thing, so we're delivering on the original DMC Discovery Square vision. The second is we're delivering on our business development strategy. So when we conducted that awareness and perception study, it pointed to 3 things we needed to solve for if we were going to be successful in this venture. The first one was we needed to increase the level of awareness about Rochester as a place to land innovation and do business. And to that end, we've hired Kyle Jordan, and she spends the bulk of her time on the road for DMC in Rochester, making sure people are aware of what the opportunities are here. The second thing was we needed to aggressively build our local ecosystem. We needed to tie Minneapolis-St. Paul closer to Rochester, and we needed to make sure to be working in the 6 different nodes that we define our infrastructure with on a daily basis, making those connections and stimulating that activity. And to that end, Chris Shad has pivoted to that role full-time and spends all of his time working with talent and capital and service providers and end users and clinical resources and global economic development, again, to try and draw that ecosystem more closely together. The third part of the strategy that was outlined in that awareness and perception study was we needed to develop turnkey lab infrastructure to make us more competitive, to make this market safer for companies to invest in, and to make this market faster to get those companies commercialized. And that is the ask in front of you today. Lastly, we're delivering on a partnership. So we did not come before this board until we had private funding to round out a financial package to make this deal possible. So there is support in this endeavor from Mayo Clinic. There is support in this endeavor from our development partner Mortensen, Biolabs, and their financial VC partner Mission Biocapital. This is a collective investment, and I think what that means more importantly is there are a lot of different groups that have skin in the game on this effort. And I will tell you that in the conversations we've been having lately, our partners are as motivated, if not more motivated than we are, and we are very motivated to make this work. And in the last 48 hours, my confidence has just grown that this will be successful because there are very senior, important people at Mayo Clinic that are going to hold us to task to make sure that this is successful. A few other things I wanted to mention. You know, the Bold Forward Unbound initiative, although not maybe directly connected to this effort, is going to do a few things. One is it is going to shine a light on Rochester in a way that I don't know if we've experienced before. In the last 60 days and looking forward in the next 60 days, we will have delegations from the Netherlands, Finland, Portugal, Japan, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and Norway coming to Rochester to understand what we're doing from a healthcare and from a health tech perspective. The vision for this hospital is to develop all sorts of new technologies around automation, healthcare delivery. That all involves industry collaboration, and we have to have a place for that work to take place. University of Minnesota Rochester, I appreciate Chancellor Carroll's comments. This is a tremendous opportunity for us to create a symbiotic relationship between Biolabs and UMR that benefits both groups. The companies that are going to come out of the Biolabs operation are going to need talent, and they are the solution locally to provide that. And Biolabs, just by the nature of what it does, is going to create opportunities for employment and partnerships and internships and real-world learning experiences that don't currently exist in that scope in this market. UMR is developing talent education programs around healthcare automation, healthcare AI, all things that are important to Mayo Clinic and that will generate innovation opportunities inside of 2 Discovery Square. And the consideration of academic research programs at 2 Discovery Square, again, I think that's an element of this that we don't all even appreciate right now. What is possible if we have these two groups next to each other working on innovation, developing talent, and helping move companies through to commercialization. And lastly, on this slide, there are 4 key groups that we work closely with. And if you're sort of in the weeds from an innovation perspective in Rochester, I think what you are keenly aware of right now is that we're sort of on the cusp of definitely an evolution and maybe a revolution when it comes to innovation in this market. We've got Mayo Clinic Business Development. Dr. Noseworthy leads that effort on the top left. We've got Dr. Riesenauer, Head of Business Development for Mayo Clinic's Research Shield. We've got Dr. Charles Bruce, who's the lead of Mayo Clinic's Innovation Exchange, and then we've got Mayo Clinic, the latest cohort of platform companies. Innovation Exchange and Platform didn't exist 5 years ago, and now they are generating a tremendous amount of interest from companies all over the world in collaborating and partnering with Mayo Clinic. Business development has a variety of different institutional changes, all of which are pointed at how do we scale up innovation, how do we form new companies in Rochester, how do we empower entrepreneurs inside the institution to get more investments and startups and ideas out. And I think it's important to state the fact that if we, these efforts are going to generate outcomes. And if we don't have a facility here, those outcomes are going to go somewhere. It's not like if we don't build this, this is going to stop. This is going to go somewhere, and it's likely going to go other places in the state, and it's going to go other places regionally. So this is really our opportunity to build an asset that lets us capture all of this here in Rochester. So, I don't think it would be appropriate for us to present this without saying there is a universe where, for various reasons, this doesn't work. I don't think that's likely, but again, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't sort of present the downside. So in talking with different groups, we've sort of identified 6 different things we can do as the EDA to help sort of bake in some protections to this agreement. And I wanna really focus on 2 things on this list. The first is the governance piece of it. And again, I mentioned senior leadership at all of the partners in this effort have committed their personal time and attention to say, we are going to meet monthly and we're going to monitor activity monthly. And if at any point, even if it's in the first 3 months, this is not achieving the goals that we've set out, we will pivot and we'll be actively engaged in making sure this stays on track. And I think it goes without saying that those are the individuals that have the ability to sort of shift focus on this and to point us in the right direction. And it is clear they're going to be very involved in this. And the other thing I would say is the clawback provision. So in the development agreement that will be created, there will be a requirement that this investment is maintained as a shared lab in 2 Discovery Square on the 3rd floor for the remainder of the DMC initiative, the remainder of the 10 years. And if at any point in that 10 years, the developer, building owner decides to terminate that function, there will be a clawback provision baked in that allows us to get a prorated portion of that investment back. So again, I don't think we'll ever be in the position of having to execute that, but if for some reason this is not successful, we will have the ability to get some of the money we put into this back. The last thing I wanted to say is this project is wholly different than things that have been brought before you in the past. And I think it's different in a lot of very exciting ways. 3 things I would call your attention to here. The first is the revenue effect of this project. We're talking about an investment that's going to generate income taxes and corporate income taxes and investment taxes in a way that we've not done with other very valuable, important investments we've made. This is a different thing, and it's going to create different benefits than what we've experienced in the past. The second, I mentioned this a minute ago, but I want to highlight it. We are creating a center of gravity here that will help us be the draw regionally for companies in this space. And we're also taking a defensive position locally to make sure that all of the great ideas that are created here, as many of them as possible, stay here. I think we're all aware of historically things that have been generated at Mayo Clinic and that have spun out and are doing great things, but maybe we don't see some of the benefits locally that we would like. This allows us to have a better position to capture those things. And lastly, a goal of all of ours is employee diversification. You're going to hear a lot later on today about Rochester's anchor dependency and discussions around how do we create an environment where that anchor continues to be successful and continues to prosper, but we decrease that anchor dependency. And the way we do that is by surrounding that anchor with other employment options that have the ability over time to scale and hire and create wealth and create value. So again, there's a lot of good reasons to do this. I think at this moment I would pause and turn time over to Dr. Riesenauer to make some comments from her perspective as a Mayo Clinic physician on what this asset represents for us.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for the time and opportunity to deliver a few brief, high-level, but visionary comments regarding the strategic value of this ask. I'm incredibly proud to be a part of Mayo Clinic, which, as we all know, is a global leader in healthcare research and development, particularly in its treatment of serious and complex medical conditions. Mayo Clinic's expertise and reputation form the cornerstone of Rochester's innovation potential. The local entrepreneurial talent and partner-driven R&D ecosystem is essential to the success of innovation locally. And this ecosystem is how we translate healthcare research and development into tangible economic outcomes for Rochester by creating jobs, attracting investment, driving innovation, and something that I'm personally passionate about, delivering cures to patients. Within Rochester, the epicenter of research and development is the entrepreneurial spirit and the partner ecosystem, which is currently anchored in Discovery Square. This district was initially designed to foster collaboration, innovation, and the commercialization in healthcare technologies in alignment with Mayo Clinic's core strategic pillars, which are to cure, connect, and transform. Shared lab space is a vital enabler for innovation ecosystem, yet remains in limited supply. As you heard Mike mention, shared labs are particularly challenging real estate ventures due to technical requirements, high cost, and specialized design. As you are aware, incubator and accelerator programs and robust technology transfer strategies are essential. Early stage biotech companies require low-cost, flexible space to survive and thrive. But the high cost of construction and the presence of high-risk, non-credit tenants do make it difficult for the private market to deliver adequate startup lab space that will ensure sustainability and growth. And so we envision a state-of-the-art combination of wet, dry, and digital lab space to support multimodal research and development enhanced by robotics and automation. These are the critical capabilities that Mayo Clinic research needs to remain at the forefront of scientific discovery. Biolabs is the national leader in shared lab space development and activation, opening several premier sites across the U.S. and internationally. We are actively in conversations with Biolabs Rochester at Discovery Square to serve as a catalyst for the local entrepreneurial and partner ecosystem, filling critical infrastructure gaps in the Rochester's innovation landscape. Our ultimate goal is to enable the development of new treatments, new technologies, and new cures for patients, including biopharmaceuticals, diagnostics, radiotherapeutics, medical devices, health IT innovation, and advanced R&D tools focused on robotics and automation. Biolabs Rochester at Discovery Square will be a cornerstone in achieving these advancements, accelerating our community's R&D impact. And none of this would be possible without the visionary leadership of Destination Medical Center, Mayo Clinic, Biolabs, and other key stakeholders such as UMR, who are willing to come together to be a transformative force in Rochester, Minnesota, and for the nation. Health tech hubs around the country aspire to have a Biolabs facility anchoring their innovation district, and thanks to DMC's unique public-private funding model, private-public funding model, Rochester has the means to make this vision a reality. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Patrick? Or Michael?
Maybe if we can, I would invite Susan Chase, who has arguably more experience than almost anybody in the development and the successful operation of these, to add any comments you might have, Susan.
I was hoping we might hear from you as well. Please proceed.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have as well. I don't have prepared remarks, but I just want to say thank you, first of all, the opportunity to be here today and to talk more about our organization, of which I am so proud. And I can sit here representing the many people. Biolabs has about 80 employees that are both staff at the centers that support the currently 384 companies across our network, which actually Mike said 14, but we actually have 17. So we're growing, and we'll be announcing this week an additional site. And what's important about that is that when we go and look at different locations and geographies, we look specifically for this type of group. This is a key element to what we do. We cannot do or move this model without public support, and that's not just about money. It is about the people who come and live in these sites and the resources that they need and can contribute. So loved hearing about housing this morning. That's a key piece of this. Retail is talent and all of those parts. And then most importantly, having a key partner that is going to fuel this innovation, and we have that partner certainly in Mayo, and they have stepped up in extraordinary ways in providing us with confidence that they will be our strong partners in this. Our founder is a medical doctor as well as a PhD scientist, and so he shares Mayo's desire to find extraordinary solutions to the many challenges that we have. And we look forward to integrating them into our network, which is indeed international. And we've already discovered, even in the last couple of days, some new collaborations that are already ongoing that we can add to. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for your comments. Let me open it up to the board. I think Member Williams, and then Member Norton, and Member Schubring.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. One, tremendous. This has been a priority for us for a long, long time, as that timeline showed, and very supportive of it. I'm going to channel my inner R.T. Rybeck here and just remark that one of the things we said, actually probably even 2-3 years ago, about how important the operator was. So I'm really pleased to see kind of how deep the vetting process has been to find that operator. I have two questions. One is just on what are our dollars being used for? Are our dollars kind of helping to staff, or is it the purchase of equipment? Is it, just want to understand, particularly as it relates to kind of the clawback provisions, and does that, how long does that, you mentioned through the next 10 years, so is our 8 million kind of parceled out over that 10 years? And then a second question, I was out at the Federal Reserve this last couple of days and just hearing about research cuts. And how are, to what extent, what's our sense of kind of the marketplace for research with federal funding cuts kind of coming down, and it's well out of my my avenue, but is that, are we concerned about that? How does that impact innovation research here at Mayo and/or in the field as a whole?
Dr. Riesenauer, I'll let you take that.
Maybe we'll answer the second question first. What I would say is it's a consistently evolving landscape, and we're fortunate at Mayo Clinic to have members both within the communications team and the federal advocacy team that constantly have an eye on things that are happening within Washington, D.C. As of right now, we continue to remain committed and involved with movements in research innovation, securing grants, whether it's through federal funding or other non-dilutive opportunities. I believe that this facility might enable us to secure more of that through opportunities for SBIR grants, which is another mechanism for outside of U.S. companies to secure non-dilutive funding. Who knows what will happen in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, but I think we've got very close ears to the ground in terms of the evolving landscape, and we're willing to pivot accordingly, which is why it comes at a very opportune time to discuss commercialization strategies and accelerating science and discovery, and that's why I'm proud to be a part of this table who are committed to doing that.
Great, thanks.
And to the first question, did you want to say?
Yep, I just wanted to add as well, to give a little bit of in the weeds flavor to that. We've just finished our auditing of our companies for 2024, and while that doesn't represent sort of the last couple of months, we track each of our companies and what they raise while they're in our sites, and then as their alumni as well. And just to give you a little sense, across the companies in 2024, our companies raised $1.2 billion, and a majority of that was in the seed and early stage. So while the narrative certainly nationally has been that there's real struggles, and they are real and true, there is still quite a lot of activity that's ongoing in our market to fund the companies that would be candidates for this space. So who knows, again, what will happen. And we are, because of where we sit and who we represent, we are also called on quite often to speak to public people across the spectrum, and so would welcome, and I expect that we'll have more collaboration and speak to Washington more often.
And to your first question, these resources will go for the infrastructure associated with the build-out of the space.
Okay.
So
Yep.
not operations, not management, not marketing, not promotions, not movable equipment, not furniture. It is the hard cost of the build-out of the specialty space, which remains in the space, and that's why this notion of a clawback, which we have to work out the logistics around that, but it's really intended to be clear to the property owner that our intent, your intent, is for the shared lab capacity to remain in Rochester.
Right, thank you.
Member Norton.
Yeah, comment and then a question. And I would just say we've come a long way. This is really exciting. And our community's always been known, because of Mayo Clinic, because of IBM, because of who we've been as a community, a collaborative community. That's always been true. I just came back from a conference yesterday on P3 partnerships, and let me tell you, if they could have heard what you just said, that's what it's all about, right? It's the future of our country and where we're moving as cities. And I want to say, it's not just the vision of Discovery Square, and love that our partners from Mortensen are here. That is one of the partners that we've worked so well with and will continue into the future, but it was a vision of DMC. The vision of DMC was about economic development in this community. And I think sometimes we forget that in all the day-to-day decisions that we make. This is truly what it was all about. And I want to just say we found a wonderful partner. It's been so exciting to get to know Biolabs, and really excited about the future here in Rochester with your business. I wanted to point out to Mike, as I looked at your slide and as you were thanking all the wonderful partners that we have and giving credit to other people, I would be remiss if I didn't thank also Patrick and you, Mike. When we moved ahead with your position, this was our hope, that we could have somebody that could drive us on the economic development part that we had been missing before. So I want to add my thanks to both of you. You thanked everyone else, but you deserve thanks as well for your hard work. It's been a little frustrating to watch it come. You've done so much of the groundwork over the last laying the foundation, and now we're here, right? And so I want to thank you. And I'm also just going to mention our University of Minnesota is here. Again, public-private partnerships where we all benefit. This is what it's all about, and this is the whole enchilada. My question is, and I don't know if it's Patrick or Michael, you talked about as BioLabs comes, as the venture capital funds are raised and the businesses start here, do you have a way to keep them here? We talk about the campus. Do you have a relationship with the campus? Are you building that so that we can do the handoff to other properties in town so we don't lose the businesses? So could you talk just a teeny bit about that?
So I think the answer to your question is related to graduation space, and that is very much in our focus, and we do have that type of space in a variety. We have additional room in 2 Discovery Square. We have a site on that block for 3 Discovery Square. We have the Rochester Technology Campus that represents, for a lot of companies, a phenomenal asset for them to grow into larger blocks of space. If you think about larger scale biopharmaceutical production, if you think about medical device production, I mean, if you look at who's out there, Vyriad and Rion have expanded out there. That represents an asset in this community that I think your point is spot on. We would have a challenge of growing a lot of stuff and losing it if we didn't have those opportunities in town. So I'm sure there are properties I'm forgetting, but I am confident, and our development partners at Mortensen are confident, that they can build additional space at Discovery Square for the companies that graduate out and need additional Discovery Square type space. And we have a great relationship with the Rochester Technology Campus with Ready to help direct these things as they grow up and out, again, to keep them here in the community. So there's probably more work we can do, but I'm confident we're in a good position right now.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to amend your comments of appreciation to include Kyle and particularly Chris. Not only does Chris's work on this predate yours,
Yes.
even predates my work on this. And this is, you can either go fast or you can or do it right. And I appreciate that the collaboration is progressed to have the right solution for this space. Member Schubring.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I too will bring out my inner R.T. Rybeck. Wow, amazing. This just feels to me like a game changer. And I look at that map of the United States and just the idea of having that sole flag in the middle of the country here in Rochester, Minnesota just fills me with a lot of pride. So just thank you to all the partners who put this together, and just thank you to BioLabs for picking our small city here in the middle of a cornfield to make your next effort. And so I do have a question related to that, and I appreciate the mayor's question regarding retention here. I think that's important. But also, if you can, Ms. Chase and Mr. Flynn, if you can talk a little bit more about bringing talent and angel investors here to Rochester. You mentioned the innovators from Mayo Clinic and their 495 steps to the lab. That's extremely valuable, and the retention of those, and then angel investors from the Twin Cities. But what will this location here in Rochester do to open the door to bringing talent from the East Coast and the West Coast and those investors to seeing Rochester? And is there something that BioLabs does to also bring people and say, hey, look at Rochester?
We certainly do. And it's part of our core offering in every community. So it starts with the key strategic person for us is the site director, which may seem like a sort of a simple construct, but that person is deeply embedded in all of the community, and so is not only responsible for the daily operations, but the strategic vision. So that person starts early in the process and provides this opportunity to start to, for sort of lack of a better word, sell the new lab. And that person is also responsible for gathering people outside the community, so people internationally. So they tap into the network and they regularly connect with people who are in our network. We also host a number of events. We have different mechanisms for highlighting activities that are happening in this market. Mayo provides, I think it's every 2 years, is the Innovation Conference. That's a fantastic opportunity, and we're going to lean heavily into that to do what we call Investor Days, which are very successful days where they're 1 day a year where we invite investors from both domestic and international investors to come and have a pitch event, but also to meet the community. It's a multi-month planning process that highlights what's happening here in the market. So it has been very clear to us, and the partners want to not only serve a community of Mayo researchers and spin-outs, but also to bring people to this community. That involves talent, and it involves all those other parts and pieces that have to come together. So all of those parts are part of our core service that we bring into the community. We won't know until we announce, and today is really the first public forum. We're sort of announcing today quietly what we anticipate doing in this market. So, I would expect, and especially with bio coming up in June, that there's going to be quite a lot of chatter about this. And when Michael was mentioning the delegations that are coming, we regularly host those in our sites as well. So I would expect there'd be international attention. So all of that will feed into and will inform us as we go along. I'm very pleased that we have time to do this because this is a nascent market for what we deliver. So having the opportunity to work with Mortensen and having the time during the construction process to lay all of the foundations for all of those parts and pieces. The only other point I would make is that it's historically true in all of our sites that the researchers like to stay close to their original labs so they can have that dual relationship and maybe have a postdoc or someone over who is the company representative at the lab. So I believe that has been true for us in all of our labs where people want to stay close to their lab, and so that builds on itself. It also helps to keep talent here for mentoring, and that's a really important piece of what we offer.
Thank you.
Thoughts?
Patrick?
I have some comments if there are no other questions.
I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you've heard the presentation, the rationale. You've seen the partnership we've established. We do hope you take action in the resolution. It spells out conditions associated with it. That wasn't necessarily part of the presentation, but the conditions that should give you confidence that this does not get executed until all of the relationships are established, including, of course, ultimately, very soon going in front of City Council for City Council's consideration, and so as well as relationships between not only Mortensen as the landlord and the city as a development agreement, Biolabs and Mortensen as a tenant, Biolabs as a tenant, and Biolabs and Mayo Clinic that will give Biolabs confidence that there will be the appropriate relationship. And these deals, if you will, these compacts are in flight right now, but we have all confidence in the world, and we all have to take steps forward. And Susan talked about this being a quiet announcement, and I see Randy from the Post Bulletin here, and suddenly it's no longer a quiet announcement. But we are, in fact, hoping to advance this conversation in a more public setting in June at the Bio International Conference, pending the outcome of this discussion, City Council, and other conversations. And we do think it's an opportunity for Rochester to, and for DMC to present and assemble a delegation that would help amplify this incredible advancement that is happening in Rochester, and more to follow on that. But I just want to introduce this potential of a delegation together with the governor making this very public announcement at the world's largest bio international conference this year in Boston, home of biolabs, on June 16th.
I appreciate that, and thank you for noting that. I just want to pause and say that we have accomplished a lot of things in the first 10 years of DMC, and we're going to hear more about that and spend more time on that later. But I think this is such a unique example of not only addressing the necessary infrastructure to make this a working community and to facilitate a multi-billion-dollar investment in Mayo, but this is really an innovative, forward-thinking, game-changing investment that is requiring multiple parties to make a good faith commitment and take a little bit of a leap of faith, if you will, together. This is a tenuous transaction that requires a lot of trust and confidence and belief that the interests and the commitments are mutually aligned between multiple parties. It is an exceptional example of collaboration, and I don't believe without the investment of the state to create Destination Medical Center, to provide state funding, and to create a forum where we can actually test and explore the alignment of our strategic interests and our commitment to these long-term goals, I don't believe that we'd be sitting here at this moment. And I don't want to underestimate the faith and confidence we have in our partners at Mortenson and Mayo Clinic and Biolabs. We found the right partnership, and this is the right time to move that forward. And I couldn't be more pleased. And I will say, not only will other parts of the country be envious about what is about to happen here, but other communities in Minnesota are going to be very envious as well. So we're thrilled to be a part of it, and with no further delay, well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for the information, your comments. We'll come back on the resolution after all of our presentations, and we'll look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, why don't we move on to the housing, I believe the housing.
Thank you.
The Civic
So-
Center North project is the next presentation?
Yes, so thank you. Inviting Catherine Malmberg from our team and Cindy Steinhauser, Deputy City Administrator, to join. We have, we did commit a lot of time for this conversation, as it was the first time you had seen this project in its formality. I think both Cindy and Catherine are prepared to do a more abbreviated presentation associated with 3 housing projects, 2 of which you have had in front of you and you've discussed, and the third one, which will be new to you today. But with that, Cindy, Catherine, do you want to take the lead?
Certainly, thank you, and good morning. Excited to be here today to discuss 3 housing projects coming forward for action, totaling 557 units. As Patrick mentioned, we'll move quickly through these. But first, grounding in a holistic approach to housing in the downtown area, that it is about a combination not just of the rents, but also the transportation costs and utility costs that are able to be realized with infill urban housing. The first project is Civic Center North, should be quite familiar to you. This is a revision to their prior application due to changes that have occurred between last year and this year. The project is 341 units of mixed income housing located on the city-owned site along the riverfront. There are 2 major revisions. One is that in December, the City of Rochester put a pause on the downtown district energy system, as I believe you're aware. The GSIA support that this board authorized for this project was tied to those extraordinary costs to be the first private customer to that downtown thermal energy network. Therefore, because that is not available to the developer, they need to come back for that approval on the GSIA dollars. Then the other thing is that the unit count on this has been adjusted as well. The project has 1 additional 30% AMI unit one additional 60% AMI unit and 2 fewer 50% AMI units, and then they have increased the number of market rate apartments in that development as well, for a total of 341 units. They are still providing that riverfront connectivity. So the recommendation that's before you today is to reauthorize at the city's direction the use of DMC TIF designation up to $13.5 million. And then the $3 million of GSIA dollars that were authorized last year have come back into the pool. And we are recommending reauthorizing $500,000 of that to support exclusively that riverfront public realm creation.
Catherine, can I just ask you to pull up the site map again and show us where that investment is centered?
Certainly. So in this map, you can see where the orange line extends over to the riverfront, that sort of wedge shape, and that's the connection. And then on the eastern edge of that line, coming back to Center Street as well.
Thank you.
So that's the first project. The second project here is a new application and request for TIF and $5.5 million of DMC GSIA. This project is 141 units of all affordable housing at 50% AMI. Also includes community-oriented retail space, bike and EV vehicle charging amenities, and additional public realm investments and streetscape enhancements. This project is located on Civic Center Drive, so it's a gateway into the downtown. It's an assemblage of existing low-density housing. The developer has been working in partnership with the city to coordinate on the vacation of street and Civic Center Drive frontage as the city needs in exchange for this mid-block passageway that's going to be moving through the 2 phases of the project. So again, this is a all affordable 50% AMI apartment complex with community-oriented retail space that will be below market rents available with community partners. They are also providing on-site geothermal and solar, so they're going far beyond the city and DMC sustainability requirements. So this would be the first project to do that. We're excited about that opportunity. There are additional bike, EV, and public realm improvements all around the building. And they're aiming for speed to market. They already have housing bonds through a January 2025 allocation. So we believe this is a underutilized gateway site and would be a good addition to the housing stock, but critically it's those things that go above and beyond the ground floor commercial space that is community oriented, the on-site geothermal, and the public passageway and other ground plane improvements that come with this project, as well as that EV and bike infrastructure component. So the GSIA funding that is being advanced today would require all of those elements as contingencies for the project. And the recommendation in front of you is up to $4 million in DMC GSIA funds for this project. And finally, we have the West Transit Village Aon Phase 1 development. Again, this one has come before the board before. This is the realization of the first phase of development at the West Transit Village. So as a reminder, the western end of the BRT investment. This vision for this to be more than a park and ride has been established by this board in 2018, 2019. To truly make this a village, it requires places for people to live. So this is the first phase that you see over on the far right of the screen, the orange bar that wraps the light blue structured parking deck that Mayo is building. This project is coming back in front of you because the number of units has been revised downward from last year. So it's going from 94 units to 75 units. And the reason for this is to optimize their success at the state level in attracting additional funds through the highly competitive MHFA process that is annually in July. So that application will be submitted in July. The TIF district was established by this board and city council earlier this year. And so now there is also a TIF increment that the parking deck is generating that would be available to direct towards the gap in this project, should this board so decide. This is 100% affordable senior housing, including 11 units of high priority homeless housing. Is being done in partnership with several local senior serving organizations, such as Southeast Minnesota Area on Aging and the Elder Network. And the supportive housing partnership is with Family Service Rochester. This is priority parcel improvement and the first step in building the village and connecting to that BRT infrastructure that the DMC and the city are already investing in. So the recommendation here is to reauthorize that 3.9 million DMC GSIA and also authorize to direct the use of 4.9 million of the TIF increment being generated by the parking deck towards this project. So,
and I think I will keep my comments brief, other than it's a pleasure to work with DMC on these critical projects, not only critical projects for meeting housing needs, they're also great projects that are helping catalyze and activate redevelopment in several key areas that we see are critical to Rochester's growth. Pending the board's action, we anticipate taking the Aon project and Loom project to the June 2nd City Council meeting, and we would take the Sherman project to the June 16th Council meeting. The only reason we're moving that to June 16th is it would walk with the development agreement at the same time. So we appreciate this board's consideration for these requests.
Thank you very much. Board members, any questions or comments on any of these proposals? Member Norton and then Member Williams.
Yeah, I will just say it's exciting to have these projects come forward. I'm particularly pleased with Loom's investment in sustainable living. Very disappointed that the city took the pause on geothermal and that it's affected 2 of these projects. But Loom has gone ahead with that sustainability, mindset that we've so wanted as a city. So I guess I just put it out there for the other 2. Anything you can do to continue our moves forward as a sustainable community and reflect that in your proposals and your design would be much appreciated. And apologies that we were unable to continue for whatever reason. I wasn't part of the discussion, but the geothermal project, because that was something we were really proud of as a community, but have stepped back from. And maybe if someone wants to address that, fine. If it's water under the bridge at this point, maybe you just want to let it go.
Mayor Norton, thank you for those comments. If I may just I would say the AM project also includes quite a few sustainability elements, including on-site, planned on-site geothermal as well as solar energy. I think all the projects are anticipating take advantage of those historic tax credits. So I think there's definitely an element of sustainability in all of them. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Member Williams.
Madam Chair, just grateful to see kind of the affordability emphasis here and including the senior work, the different value adds of sustainability, the affordability at different levels. So, and then most importantly, just thrilled to see private developers in the mix with us. I just think that's critically important in any community. Just had a question about the Civic Center North project and just that reduction from 3 million down to 500,000 in GSIA funding. Is that just reflective of the cost of what the geothermal or the district energy connection was going to cost?
Correct. The original award was based on that incremental additional cost to be the customer, the first private customer of that downtown thermal energy network. So now that that component went away, the evaluation was tied solely to the additional public realm investment needed to realize that project's vision, which was the smaller portion, the 500,000.
Great.
So technically, the original award was 3 million specifically for the cost of that connection. That is now being rescinded.
Yep.
And we're considering a new allocation of 500,000 for the public realm elements of this proposal. Member Schubring?
Yes, thank you. And just want to echo the mayor's comments on appreciating the Loom project coming in and with their commitments and the revision to the Sherman and Ion projects. And I know pending city council approval, there are a few more hurdles that both of those projects have at, I believe, at the state level. Can you talk just a little bit about what we have to see moving forward?
Sure. Yes, so the upcoming MHFA annual competitive process is based on a scoring system. And so the team, and we do have members of the development team here as well today, if you would like to have them speak directly to this as well. But it is a competitive process, and resources at the state level are increasingly stressed as well. So the AON project specifically is going forward again through that process. They have optimized their application to an even higher level than when they went through the first round last year and were unsuccessful, but they kind of knew going into it that was a possibility. They've continued to hone and refine, and this current application reflects something that they feel will really optimize their chances at the state level to get that critical LIHTC component into the project to be able to close.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Member Norton?
Thank you, and I forgot to ask my question earlier, which is about the third bullet down on page 48, which says that the $13.5 million on the Sherman project will not count against the city's local DMC TIF for our required 128. Could you address that, please? Why it's not counting against the city's 128?
Do you want, well, I'll start. This is repeating the authorization from last year on the TIF side of things. So just to say that's not a change, and then I'll hand it to Cindy.
Yeah, I think as we took a look at the project and took a look at similar projects that we have used TIF application before, we felt like this was an alignment where we decided not to apply it to the 128 cap, right? And that it was more suited as just a DMC TIF that didn't need to apply to that cap. Thinking about how we are anticipating meeting that $128 million cap with other projects. So I would say we felt like it was more in alignment with how we've approached TIF projects, DMC TIF projects.
I appreciate, I think that's a good question. I would encourage any follow-up discussion might need to occur before the presentation to the city council, but it does not affect our position on this funding request today, but it might require some further discussion before the city council meeting. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, what I'd like to do is have a motion for each of these individually, and I'd like to have them in the order in which they were presented. And so what I would like to ask for is a motion on the biolabs project in Rochester. Is there a motion to move forward?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is approved. Congratulations on that. And next, we have the Civic Center North proposal, and there are, again, I just want to say in the resolution, we are rescinding the original $3 million award and approving a request for $500,000. So it's baked into that same resolution. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For the next two projects, I just want to point out both for Loom and the West Transit Village liner building, there is a slight modification to the resolution that has been passed out to you today that just gives some discretion to staff to work through the final details as these projects are still moving forward in other processes. So I just wanted to note that. They have been provided to you, but let's take them individually. Is there a motion to approve the Loom project?
Moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next, the West Transit Village liner building. Motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. I just want to say I'm really excited about the work that's been presented here today and the actions that have moved forward on these projects, and just the variety of our individual interests and strategic objectives that are reflected in these housing projects. And so it's not one set of a recipe that you replicate each time. It's the location is different, the population served is different, the design elements are different, the goals that they serve about supporting our community are different, and these are really strong proposals that have been brought forward, and I appreciate everyone's work on those. All right, we're going to move on now. Next on our agenda is
Thanks, Catherine.
the Historic District Project requests. So we're gonna change up staff here for a bit,
So thank you.
to all our guests.
Nice to see you again.
All right, go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you. We are moving to another set of action items that we'll cover, and the first of which is the Historic District. And again, I want to note that the recommendations coming forward today all fit within the resources that you had directed us to work with to support the preservation, stabilization, and enhancement of Rochester's downtown historic district, a designated district, of which there are 29 or 30 buildings in a very tight geography. And Jamie Rothy from our staff, who you've seen before, presenting on this, will lead us through a discussion or presentation of what's in front of us.
It's great, thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here again to present projects for your consideration. As a reminder, the DMC Historic District Property Support Program was designed to support the preservation, activation, and revitalization of Rochester's historic district built environment. By investing in this historically significant area, the property, it aims to build vibrancy in our downtown and to stir more economic activity, and that aligns with our DMC goals. Just a quick reminder that the Historic District Landmark was established by our City Council in 2024, January 2024, excuse me. And in May is when we brought forward the program for your approval. And then following that in September of 2024 was when we brought our first set of projects forward. So we're just headed into a year of the program. Noting that as well, we're anticipating that the next time we are in front of you, that we'll bring back a look-back report of where we're at, getting some more feedback from our community and talk about, what do things look like moving forward. This is a slide that reminds us of a few things. When we set up the support, we did some estimating based on projects we had seen that had moved through our community, also talking with our stakeholders. And on the right-hand side is our actual numbers of where we are today.
So give us just a moment, because you've
Sure.
got a little technical glitch there about the spacing. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, so just to call it out, so adaptive reuse, we were looking at a projected number at 5 to 8. Building systems upgrade.
2.5 to 4 million of support, and you have 2 for 370 and change. Okay,
Correct.
I see how they're lining up here now.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Apologies for that. Hope
That's
that's the
all right.
only
That's okay.
technical glitch we have today.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot more
We can work through
technology,
that. We
a lot
can
more
work through that.
technology to follow.
All right, thank you.
No
Go ahead,
pressure.
Jamie.
Okay, so the projects before you today, there are 4 projects. I'm just gonna quickly walk through what they are with you. So 216 First Avenue Southwest has been in front of you before, but this is some additional work. The property owner owns the 2 properties and an alleyway in between. It's currently where cafe seating is. And after some work with our city colleagues, it was determined the property owner wants to remove HVAC system and some old systems and put them on top of the roof so that the cafe seating area can be more utilized, and they can upgrade those systems. So that is that project. 324 South Broadway is exciting. This is our second housing project. It's known as Fagan Studios is the below ground. You might have been there for some open events, and then the photography studio used to be on top, and they're seeking to change that over to housing. 22 3rd Street Southwest is tuck point and roofing. And then the property 326 to 328 is foundation tuck pointing. All of these align with our program. We do, as a reminder, a review from our staff perspective with our city colleagues, and we review that through a process to making sure that they meet the criteria. On the far right-hand column is the column that we're looking at today, is the funding we're asking you to consider. That total number is just about $550,000 total. This graph is also in your packet today. So if this is supported and approved today, you may recall that when we brought forward this program to you, we built a total budget of $5 million. And so with those dollars included today would just be over $1.3 million. And so we'll open it up for conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Member Schubring?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say, one, I will be supporting these projects. And I just wanted to let my colleagues on the board know that 2 weeks ago, we had another issue regarding the Historic Preservation District come before the City Council, and we had over 30 members of the public that spoke on behalf of the district and preserving the district. And the interesting thing to me was we did hear from the folks that really want to see those historic buildings preserved, but there was another element to what we heard, and it was the community that's developing around those buildings, the arts community, the community and the gathering spaces within these buildings that is really percolating up a new community in our downtown around our historic district. So I'm very proud to see these investments from a DMC standpoint, but also from the business owners to really put that into those buildings and to help develop that community that's happening there.
You know, I just want to tag team on that because my own recollection of this is it was born out of some really difficult years of COVID, where particularly hospitality and retail establishments in the downtown and elsewhere, but really struggled. And there was conversation about how can we intervene and help support those proprietors. And I was relieved and interested when that opportunity really became more available to us about preserving the historic nature and the structures in the downtown area. And I personally don't care what that investment, what happens in those buildings. I care about the character of the downtown and the preservation of those units, because for any struggling proprietor, if you also have a leaky roof or inefficient HVAC systems or windows that need replaced, I mean, sometimes that makes the difference about whether you have a going concern or not, and whether you could retain that property or not. So I'm actually quite pleased with the progress we've made on finding partners in those owners who are willing to find a way to finance the other 50% that's required to make these investments go forward. And the stability that that will provide for these structures in the heart of downtown and the character that will be maintained over time because of that investment is really quite gratifying to see. And I know it's a lot of work just even promote what it is that is available and to, you know, do a lot of hand-holding about what might be possible, but we're making great progress on this program, and I appreciate the effort. Other comments? Member Tyne.
So I need a clarification first, maybe from Patrick. On the number 2 of the Fagan Studios, on that adaptive reuse to an apartment, is it a single apartment that it's going to end up being?
Yeah, Commissioner Tyne, thank you. Yes, this is a vacant second floor that will be converted into a one apartment unit. These are very narrow buildings and very small footprints to work with, and I did talk to the property owner to clarify that, but it is currently vacant, not operating as it once did as part of the studio, because that business isn't being operated right now, and it'll be one unit.
Okay. I'll preface this by saying I'm a big proponent of the historic district, and I want to see these buildings stay for future generations and all this stuff, but I do have a problem with $245,000 of public money being spent to basically build a $490,000 apartment that will likely be rented out to somebody of significant income, and I don't know that that's a proper use of our funds. So as it is right now, I'll be opposing that expenditure, but I appreciate the historic district overall and will support the rest of the projects.
Member Campbell, do you have your hand up?
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion.
You certainly can make a motion, and we can continue discussion after the motion.
Well, I enthusiastically move this action, especially since I see that one of these projects represents somebody that's been bending my ear for 10 years. And so it's really exciting.
Do you really believe that, will that stop now if this is approved?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
all right,
But I'm just thrilled to see that this project is now coming to fruition.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Chair, if I could just, I do think there's going to be other discussion, but I wanted to acknowledge Member Tyne's point, and similar conversation took place at the DMC EDA in vetting these and reviewing these. And ultimately, the EDA did advance this with unanimous support, recognizing and believing we need to revisit this conversation, revisit exactly what did we all mean by adaptive reuse. So we established a program, we promoted the program, we got response to the program, and didn't know exactly what would come out of it. We've now seen with just less than a year under our belt, tremendous response, and probably due time to more fully evaluate and think about, is this what we had hoped for or intended? So ultimately, the EDA board did unanimously support it, but wanted to convey they believe following this and in advance of any further action, that there would be a more fulsome discussion about how do these criteria match up with the intended, the intention of this.
Member Williams?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd love to hear more of that conversation. From my perspective, to your point, Madam Chair, at the very beginning, tuck pointing, moving HVAC, putting in an apartment, a big part of what this is about maintaining the character of the historic district. It's also about economic sustainability of any particular building. And from my perspective, transforming empty space into an apartment helps maintain economic sustainability. Each of those investments in those buildings will improve the value of that building. And so one type of improvement versus another, I think it is a good topic for further discussion, but from my perspective, all of those, have a financial benefit to the owner. And so I'd be interested in more discussion about it, but I'm okay with it.
Member Norton?
Yeah, and I would just say I share Commissioner Tyne's concerns on this one. We had another project earlier this year come forward. I raised these same issues at that one. I don't think we should be providing, I think there should be a loan, even an interest-free loan for folks who want to do this kind of thing. But when you're making a profit on a new apartment complex, it doesn't feel right to me to be just handing over money for one individual to be making a profit on that. So I'm with Commissioner Tyne in that I want to approve all the projects and pull my support for that one in its current format. So I don't know how we would do that by motion, Madam Chair, if you could help me.
I'll turn to Tammy, but I'm going to suggest that we split this resolution and carve out the 324 South Broadway project as a separate action item with the additional request for a follow-up report from staff and the EDA on modifications to the program before any further funding requests come forward to this board in this program. So I'd like to tie that together as a separate resolution, and I'll ask for a motion on that to separate or split these, but I'm gonna let Tammy wordsmith that intent for me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think because we have a motion on the table from Commissioner Campbell with a second by Williams, we would ask the maker and the seconder if they'd be open to that amendment to remove the one of the 4 projects.
I am.
Mr. Williams, great. So we will have the record reflect that that motion has been amended. Then we could act on that motion and come back to the other project.
Let's go with the remainder of that first motion. Let's do the 3 projects first, if we
Yes.
could. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on those 3, 216 First Avenue Southwest, 22 3rd Street Southwest, and 326 to 28 South Broadway? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? A motion carries. Next, we'll consider the 324 South Broadway. Any further discussion on that resolution? I would just simply echo again my previous comments of Member Williams. I think this is about making sure these structures are sustainable, and I don't care. I assume somebody's going to invest 50% of private funding because there's an economic return on that, whether that occurs in rent or retail receipts or restaurant receipts is immaterial to me at this point, and maybe staff will come back with clarifications that will make me think differently. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this project, but is there any further discussion?
Madam
Seeing
Chair,
none- Oops.
can you just clarify the resolution?
The resolution is to support funding for 324 South Broadway in the amount of $245,185, and to request staff and EDA to come back with suggested revisions to the program scope before we receive future funding requests.
Got it.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
I'm abstaining on that one.
Madam Chair, could we clarify who seconded the motion?
I'm assuming
I
it's,
would have, based on Jim's,
I'm sorry, this was for the new resolution, then we need a new motion, a second.
oh, okay, I thought
And
that,
so-
when we split it, I thought
Right,
that the.
okay, so we'll have Wheelock as the maker
Sure,
and Baker as the seconder,
wonderful.
and then Schubring, you'd like to
Abstain.
abstain?
So let's do a roll call vote on this one.
Great, okay. Baker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Norton,
Nay.
Schubring,
Abstention.
Tyne,
Nay.
Williams,
aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
So 4 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 abstention. That motion carries.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. All right, moving forward, thank you, staff. The next item is the Mobility Link Bus Rapid Transit.
Thank you. Again, we have provided support and authorization sufficient to advance the Link Bus Rapid Transit. And today's discussion is simply to provide some conditions under which the city could advance the project should it exceed where we now stand and where we think we're going to stand with respect to budget when bid openings occur in June for the final of the bid packages. So Cindy, just additional comments?
Sure, I would just say, we are feeling really positive about where the project is headed based on some of the recent bid activity. We have 5 of the 8 project components out for bid or bid awarded. 2 are underway with openings by June and openings this month and award by June. And the remaining package would be West Transit Village bathrooms, which will happen later in the project. So we were fortunate with the Volume B civil package when we broke out B and C. Volume B civil package came in under, several $1 million under estimate as opposed to several $1 million over. Volume C, we feel like it, in our work in talking to local contractors, we feel like that will be competitively bid. The number here that's reflected is the number from the last bid opening. It isn't necessarily what we think the bids are going to come in at. And we also feel very strong that we've got some good numbers and where the market is at for Volume D to come in at or close to that anticipated project. So we feel like the contingency that is allocated towards the project, given where we're at with awards or pending awards, is, we're right in a nice spot with contingency, and appreciate the board's consideration for our request.
So specifically what is being requested, I wanted you to hear the confidence of the city staff leadership on this with respect to the project, because as you know, there was to be a special meeting of this board in February to consider additional support. And the strategy that unfolded was to break up the bid packages, do some value engineering, and I'm hoping you hear the confidence coming from the city leadership around that strategy and how it's working. That said, the final couple of bid packages are going to come in June, and wanted to provide some flexibility to the city to draw down some of the contingency should that be necessary in order to keep the project advancing without calling a special meeting of the DMCC board.
Thank you. Member Schubring.
Just one question, just to clarify. So the cost up there, Ms. Steinhauser, is that the estimates of the packages, or is, you mentioned that was the opening bid of the previous package? Can you just clarify that?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So volumes A, B, the right-of-way vehicles and professional services are actuals or awarded amounts. The three highlighted ones, C, D, and West Transit Village bathrooms, are current estimates. The only caveat is volume C, the estimate is really based on the last bid opening, because we think that while we don't anticipate the bid package to come in at that number, we do think that's a better representation of where the package might come in as compared to our earlier estimates.
Thank you for that clarification.
Other questions or comments? Again, this is just to allow the authorization of use so that the contracts can be awarded. We would have required a special meeting for this earlier. We're getting ahead of that so that we can keep this project on schedule. And we'll ask for, obviously, a report back at our next meeting about any action that's occurred. Any further discussion? Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Further discussion, Member Norton?
Yeah, I just, I guess I'm a little curious as to, does this set a baseline for people? Are the bids already out? Are people going to look at this and raise their prices based on what we're doing here? That would be my only concern about our action, although I understand the rationale for it.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Mayor. Yes, volumes C and D are out. We have been doing a lot of work, answering a lot of questions, recruiting more competition to the project. We feel like the comments that we've received, that we do anticipate some good competition with this next round. There's a certain amount of contractors that are already here, and so co-locating the benefits that we could receive from co-location of being adjacent to a current project. So we still feel very positive that unpacking them, unbundling them, and the outreach that we've been doing is going to have a positive effect to the bid documents, bid openings.
But just to clarify, this information has been publicly available. It's just been available in a different format as kind of a large single project moving forward versus component pieces. And now the question is, how much competition are you going to have, and how will that affect the final number?
Yes, thank you. Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a resolution to modify the DMC Development District relative to the West Transit Corridor. So Patrick?
Yeah, thank you. So in order to expand all of these funds, it needs to be within the, this project needs to be within the DMC district, and of course it largely is, but for a few modifications along the Second Street corridor and the West Transit Village requiring slight modification of those boundaries to accommodate for land acquisition, right-of-way usage, and infrastructure investment, and separately a location for the bus maintenance facility, which is off-site. In a light rail system, the bus maintenance facility would be immediately adjacent to the line because of the extraordinary expense of building a rail system additional rail to get to a bus maintenance facility or a vehicle maintenance facility. In the case of a rubber wheel system, you can do it off-site and create what we think is a much more efficient use of those dollars and better location for that bus maintenance facility. However, it does require this boundary modification, which is allowed for in the state law, and it's delineated the steps for doing that, beginning with this procedure today.
And the only other thing that I would add to Patrick's comments is that what is partially driving this is how we report to FTA. For DMC, of course, funding is the match for this project. You cannot report it as a lump sum match. You have to report it against every single one of the project line items. The maintenance bay is a standalone line item. And so to accurately and legally reflect DMC as the match, it needs to be in the boundaries.
Thank you, that was helpful. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Patrick, we'll move on now to our update items, and we have 3 in particular for discussion or conversation.
Thank you. So first of all, congratulations. You got through 7 significant decision items. Well, actually the audit, you count that as 8. So got through 8 significant decision items, and congratulations on that. And we appreciate and know, of course, that most of these have to go, we will bring to City Council for their action as well. Don't leave, Cindy.
Oh, okay.
So the first of the discussion items has to do with our 2026 budget and work plan priorities. And what typically happens at this meeting is that we acknowledge that there is a process we go through with city staff and then ultimately with a work group of city electeds and DMC representatives to develop a budget that we bring back to the DMCC in September for consideration by City Council. So that usually begins here, and we welcome interest by members of this board to participate on that working group. We also try to introduce what we think are important work plan and budget development considerations as we are launching. And again, just a reminder, the budget includes the capital improvement program, the DMC EDA work plan as staff to you, work plan and operating budget, a city project management team that supports this work, the DMCC operating budget, which supports these meetings and other operations and the council you receive, and then the working capital loan renewal. Those are the action items that ultimately will come forward, and there is a sequence beginning now and with different stages along the way before coming to this board in September and City Council in October. As we, as staff, have begun discussing what we think from a capital improvement point of view ought to be priorities, we have been thinking about ensuring that current projects that are underway are appropriately resourced. So Link Bus Rapid Transit, of course, which we believe we're on track with, 6th Street Bridge, and perhaps some other examples that are projects in flight that we would want to ensure that they show up in future capital budgets. And then this conversation that we've been having around how do we sufficiently support the infrastructure adjacent to Bold Forward Unbound. And I think there is to be a robust discussion around what that looks like and what that means. And then preserving resources for the 5-year update and priorities that we don't know about today that will emerge as we collectively have conversation about the 5-year update. So our feeling going into this process, and something for you to consider, is these are the ways that we would organize the conversation for the summer discussions around our capital budget.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that we just continue to move along, but that any members that are interested in working over the summer in a voluntary capacity to provide some advice and counsel on the budget development, talk to me after the meeting, please. Patrick?
The next of the discussions is to remind you that we are just beginning the update process to the DMC development plan. And you've seen this before. A reminder of what we are obligated to do is it's baked into the state law requiring that we provide an update to the development plan at least every 5 years, last updated in 2020, and that there are specific elements that must be reflected in this update. And again, these are all codified in state law. We have been begun that work by really starting with understanding what has been the planning that has gone on in Rochester subsequent to the 2020 update, and there has been a lot, whether it's UMR's campus master plan, Mayo Clinic's plan, the city's Unified Development Code, Downtown Waterfront Master Plan, Mayor's 2050 vision. We know there has been lots of conversations and lots of planning going on, and that anything that we would do really wants to stand on top of that, be value added to that other incredible work that you see in these various plans. We think that that's the beginning of our work, and we've retained the support of Smith Group and James Lima Planning to support that process, and they are here with us today at their first sort of listening visit. We will be reviewing all of that past work. We'll play back the results and make sure that we understand what the community has already been saying. And then we will use that to, I think, again, create new value to the existing plans and talk about things that, from a destination medical center point of view, become extraordinary new additions to the planning work that has been done. We are on a timeline that has begun. This afternoon you'll hear the 10-year look back. We got to start with understanding what we've done, and then we will begin through this series of activities in the summer and the fall, ultimately coming back to you in December with a proposed plan for adoption.
Any questions, Member Williams?
Yeah, just a comment, Madam Chair, just about, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Not surprisingly, I've talked about this before, the importance of community engagement and dialogue with community beyond kind of the typical master planning and community planning process, and just ensuring that we have an opportunity for residents, regular folk to have some input both on the vision up front and kind of that community engagement and co-design process. So it's just a comment more than a question.
And coordination with partners who may be engaged in planning discussions and activities as well.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you. I think those are really important points. And again, it's partly why we wanted to acknowledge all of the other planning that's gone on. There is this sort of planning fatigue that we hear about in community. And quite frankly, if we don't take advantage of what's already been said, what the community's already talked about, that would be short-sighted. And I'm looking at the mayor, who did a tremendous effort over the past year to engage community. And we know there are voices that haven't been at the table, and we will work to develop strategies to ensure their opportunity. With that, I would like to invite to the table our newest staff member, and some of you know her because you sat alongside her when she was city council president. Brooke Carlson recently has joined our team via an arrangement with Mayo Clinic, and joined our team to specifically support this next topic that we're talking about. And so I wanted to introduce her in that capacity. Feel free to say hello.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be working with you from this perspective.
Welcome.
It's not fair.
So as we were evaluating what our really needs were to support a better understanding of how do we think about the infrastructure associated with Unbound, this unprecedented multi-generational investment that is going to be happening, we know that Mayo Clinic will do an extraordinary job with that building and with that design and meeting the needs of patients as they understand it. What we need to do is support that by really understanding how does that project fit with the adjacent neighborhoods, the connective tissue inside and outside of the neighborhood, major gateways, Again, channeling, we have all been channeling a version of our inner RT. He talked about sort of feathering the connection, blurring the connection or the line between this new investment and the adjacent neighborhoods. Brooke will play a role in leading a conversation with the adjacent neighborhoods, with a consultant, to help us understand what could this ultimately look like if we invest not only in the underground infrastructure to support Unbound, but the above-grade infrastructure that supports connectivity to the neighborhood and beyond. Now, she's been on the job exactly 4 days, so don't expect her to have all of the answers, but she has hit the ground running, and just want to simply say, we expect to bring back before you a strategy that tells the story of the role DMC might consider playing in supporting Unbound and the adjacent neighborhood to really maximize the opportunity associated with this extraordinary investment.
Any questions? Member Baker and then Member Campbell.
Yeah, I think it's great. When we were talking earlier about the next phase and the planning, we're in a different stage, obviously, and the first 10 years have been a big success, and Forward Unbound is one of the crowning achievements. And the thing that we have to assure is that we do a great job enabling Forward Unbound to live up to its potential, both for Rochester and for Mayo. I mean, and for Olmsted County too. And so that's going to be has to be a big part, and obviously. And then the other is, what other leverage points? And I think the biolabs is a great example of how you leverage all this work in a very smart way. But we do have to think about this phase a little bit differently than we did in the first 10 years. And we're lucky to be where we are, but we can't take it for granted. This will not automatically happen.
Member Campbell.
Well, I'm really pleased, Brooke, that you're taking on this responsibility, because picking up on where Doug just left off, the next 10 years are really critical. And I think the thing that is most important is that we listen to the community about their concerns, and that we communicate. I mean, if we communicate, we should communicate 3 or 4 times what we might expect to communicate. Because, I mean, I thought yesterday's front page of the Star Tribune was reflective of a bit about how the community looks at this exciting phase that's in front of us. And so what you're going to be working on is absolutely bedrock. I mean, it is critical for the next 10 years of this experience, and so it's great to have you on board. Thank you.
Member Schubring.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to put my predecessor on the spot, but I actually relished the opportunity to ask her some questions. So if you can talk just a little bit more about, I heard adjacent neighborhoods, and I really look at what's happening with Bold Forward Unbound. Clearly, the most impacted will be those adjacent neighborhoods, but tell me how the radius of those adjacent neighborhoods and your contact will radiate outwards.
I will give it a shot, and I will ask my colleagues here to pipe in with more information as I'm just in learning mode. But if you think about the impact of Bold Forward downtown, you think about kind of concentric circles moving outward. So as I step into this role, I'll be thinking about those inner circles to start as they're most pressing. The construction and demolition is already well underway. People are already being impacted directly in their day-to-day lives. So how do we bring together the partners, the institutions, but also the neighborhoods and businesses, and think about what sort of priorities our community has in connecting downtown to those surrounding neighborhoods. So of course there's community-wide impact, but as I dive in, the most pressing is those being impacted today as they live and try to access downtown for work or pleasure. So that's how I'm thinking about it. Did I say that per your understanding?
Yes, and we're very excited to be working alongside with Brooke. And I would say that's exactly right. When we talk about the area of immediate impact that a project creates, the next and it's not necessarily concentric circle, it's more amorphous than that, right? But then what's that area of integration? Where do things need to make sense to meet up, physically meet up? And then we think about area of opportunity, and that, again, there, already we know Kutzke neighborhood's going to be that area of opportunity. We know there are key gateways that are areas of opportunity, but through this process that I think Brooke will lead very, very well, is we'll discover where are there other opportunities and how does that align with the guiding principles that are in front of us, how we think about allocating dollars for below ground and above ground infrastructure, and that there's synergy across all of that systems thinking.
Great, thank you. Great answers.
Madam Chair?
Member Wood?
Thank you. I mean, we know some of what is needed and have, you know, was it the Business Forward initiative of helping business, again, my experience building the light rail line down University Avenue in St. Paul, which was very, you know, as a 3-year disruption. This likely is an even longer disruption. But the importance of that work, reaching out, working with small businesses, wayfinding, open during construction, other, you know, sustainability measures for businesses, I think are all things that we have utilized before, and I suspect will be important. Again, what I think is equally important, though, is, again, connecting with as RT put it, feathering. How does the design of this massive investment, how does that feather into those adjacent neighborhoods, not to mention the immediate areas? And so I think we know a lot about that. I'm thrilled that Mayo is making a commitment in terms of your role to that, and again, just ensuring that we really have a robust approach to that, I think is just immensely important. And we know some of what works.
I appreciate practically so much of the utility work that's necessary for the expansion of Mayo is not only underneath the footprint of Mayo. It extends not even just in our district, but beyond. So there's the practical reality of what you have to do to get the project done. But it does remind me a little bit about the Ford Bridge site in St. Paul. All of the discussion was about that square footage, that boundary line. And the reality is, for anyone that lives around that, all the traffic, all the infrastructure, all the streetscaping extend into the surrounding neighborhoods and impact those surrounding neighbors. All the retail opportunities that exist and the new ones that could be created. And not spending enough time thinking about how that investment opportunity affects and creates opportunities or challenges for the surrounding neighborhood is short-sighted. So I appreciate this. I think this board will want to be very involved in the evolution of this work, and we look forward to participating with you and finding the right role, the appropriate role, the strategic role for the DMC in this work.
Thank you.
I'm going to move us along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome, Brooke. Welcome back, I should say, Brooke. All right, our final, I believe our final action item is a commendation for R.T. Ryback. And I was hoping that if we put it at the end of the schedule today, that he might be here with us. We may see him at the lunch or see him later. It's a challenging time, given what's going on.
You all know RT, and he may be somewhere already in Rochester.
Yes, exactly. That's true as well. But our final action item is to recognize our former board colleague. And before asking for a motion to consider the commendation that is in your packet, I would like to read it into the record, and then we can have board comments when a motion is on the table. And even though he's not with us here in the room, he's with us in spirit, and I know will appreciate our recognition and our comments, and that will get back to him. But I'm going to, it's not short, but it's important, and so I ask you to bear with me. So, commendating R.T. Ryback and expressing gratitude and appreciation for his service to the Destination Medical Center Corporation. Whereas the Destination Medical Center Corporation, DMCC, was established by law in 2013 to exercise oversight, adopt plans, and approve projects as part of an initiative by the state of Minnesota to sustain Mayo Clinic in the city of Rochester, Minnesota as the world's premier destination medical center. And whereas R.T. Ryback has been a director of the DMC since his appointment by Governor Mark Dayton in 2013, a term of service marked by a steadfast commitment to community and economic development, an emphasis informed by his service as the 46th mayor of Minneapolis and president and CEO of the Minneapolis Foundation. And whereas Mr. Ryback has been instrumental in efforts to support small and local business, historic properties, housing affordability, mobility strategies for Rochester's growing workforce, and targeted business and workforce utilization efforts. And whereas Mr. Ryback provided visionary leadership to the DMCC during his tenure as chair of the DMCC Board of Directors, including serving as co-chair of the Heart of the City Community Advisory Committee and encouraging significant private investment in housing, hospitality, and life science. And whereas Mr. Ryback's key role is evidenced by DMCC investments which, during his term as board chair, including the addition of the West Transit Village to the DMC Development District, acceptance of bus rapid transit as part of a comprehensive multimodal mobility strategy, approval of the Discovery Walk Public Realm Project, and adoption of the 2020 update to the DMC Development Plan. And whereas during the same period, the DMCC also made catalytic investments in several downtown properties, enabling the renovation of the Wells Fargo Center and Hotel Indigo and development of the Hyatt House Hotel, 2 Discovery Square, and Brick on Broadway mixed-income apartment project, along with private projects. And whereas Mr. Ryback's leadership and vision have been pivotal to the ongoing success of the Destination Medical Center initiative, including the creation of thousands of new jobs and nearly $1.8 billion in private investment. Now therefore be it resolved by the DMCC Board of Directors that it commends R.T. Ryback for his service to DMCC and the residents of and visitors to the City of Rochester, Olmsted County, the State of Minnesota, and Mayo Clinic. Be it further resolved that the board expresses its gratitude and appreciation for his invaluable service to this transformative effort to sustain Rochester, Minnesota as America's City of Health. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. And we get the rare opportunity to talk about our former colleague without him in the room. So, any comments by board members?
Well, since RT and I are, I guess, the last two original board members.
The last man standing here, Jim.
I don't think we have time for the stories that I'd like to tell about RT. He and I probably go back 40 years, and we haven't always agreed on things. I never forget the time I called him about 10:30 after I watched him on the evening news when he was saying that he'd never support a new Twin Stadium. And I basically gave him the devil on the phone that night, and he refers to that every time he sees me. He said, "Jim, I didn't know that you knew those words." So there's no one that deserves more credit for helping us accomplish what we have done here than RT. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to recognize him for his good work.
Yeah, thank you. Other comments?
Madam
We'll just-
Chair,
yes.
I would just agree. The resolution really covered so many pieces of it, and over I haven't quite known him 40 years, but pretty close. And wherever it is that he is that I have worked with him, he always brings the same creativity, the same ideas, innovation, and his focus on transit in particular has been incredible, but also breadth and authenticity. The fact that his in-laws, I mean, he has genuinely spent time in this community, and so he brings that. So I'm just grateful for his work in so many places, but particularly here in Rochester and with DMC.
Agreed. I think both professionally, personally, he will be a hard act to follow, and I hope to have some updates on gubernatorial appointment when we next meet, or in between this meeting and our next. But he has been a valued colleague and added greatly to the advancement of our work. And I look forward to seeing him whenever the opportunity.
You'll see him in about 5 minutes.
I'm hoping
He's over
so.
at the Hilton now.
He
He's
is.
over at the
Okay.
Hilton now.
All right, great. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, is there any questions for staff related? Oh,
I'm
excuse me.
sorry, Madam Chair, could we clarify who made the motion and who seconded it?
I made it.
Norton?
I seconded.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, capital projects, any questions for staff on the reports that are in your board materials? Okay, seeing none, before we adjourn, I'm gonna do this on Tammy's behalf, but I wanna remind you that when we go to lunch, there will be a quorum of DMC board members present. This is not a business meeting. We are not to discuss any DMC board business at this meeting. And is there anything beyond that that you need to emphasize, Tammy?
You got it, good job.
Mind your Ps and Qs, and let's follow the rules and not create any issues. And then we'll go to lunch, and then after that, we will reconvene around 1:30 for the joint session. So is there a motion to, our next meeting then is Thursday, September 25th, here at the Civic Center. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.